Hi, everybody. It's Kathy Ondas with Simply Cards by Kathy, and we're getting ready to go live. So we're going to wait we have just a minute or two. If you're watching and you can hear me, please just leave me a comment that you can see me and that you're hearing me. And we'll get started in just a minute. We are using, or I am using, live stream or StreamYard to live stream this to you. And hopefully you're able to see me well. So today we're going to make 2 note cards, and we're going to be using the Flowering Tulips bundle. Earlier this week, we used the tulip dies, and I showed you how to use the dies and put them together to make some pretty cards. Well, today we're going to use just the stamps, and we're going to do some really simple stamping, and we're going to use just stamps, ink, and paper. And whoever said that you can't make beautiful cards by just stamping? And it's that old adage that sometimes less is better. So that's what we're going to do today. I have a couple samples here to show you. And these are done in Bumblebee and Daffodil. So we are going to I'm going to show you, because it is a 2-step stamp, I'm going to show you how to do it with a monochromatic color, where we're just going to use polished pink. And then we're going to do 2 colors using Blushing Bride and Melon Mambo. So before we get started, I just want to bring in the mini catalog and show you that this stamp set, which is Flowering Tulips, can be found on page 16 of the January to June mini catalog. And it does come as a bundle, Flowering Tulips bundle, but today we're just going to use the stamps, but some really pretty distinctive stamps. So let's move that off to the side, and I'm going to bring my stamps in first to show you. Oh, and my dies are falling out. You can see these stamps have been well loved. They are photopolymer stamps. And photopolymer stamps will stain, particularly with the reds and the purples, but they do not affect the stamping quality of that stamp. It just colors the stamp, but you still get a beautiful image. So this stamp set has some really great greetings. You are so thoughtful. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day. No one deserves a happier birthday than you. Love you so much. Just thinking of you today, and let today be the start of something new. But this would also be a great stamp set for even Easter. So lots of versatility with this stamp set. So I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way. And I've done some of the cutting, and actually these are really easy cards, because in order to make these cards, we're using the Stampin' Up! Note cards. Now, if you don't have the Stampin' Up! Note cards and envelopes, you can make this size. It's simply 7 by 5, and it's scored at 3.5. So you can use the note cards, or you can make it on your own. So we're going to get started, and very little supplies we're using. We're using some basic black. Measurements are, the white is 3 by 4.5, and so the black is 3 1/8 by 4 5/8. And that's all we're going to use for both cards that we're going to make. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to fold my card on the fold line. And then I'm going to burnish it so that we get a nice flat fold. Okay, I'm going to set that off to the side, and the black is going to be our matte. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my basic white. Now, if I'm making the card base, I do use the thick basic white because I think it gives you more stability to the card. But if I'm stamping a layer, I simply use the basic white. And I'm going to pull in my piercing mat, which you can see I have covered with a piece of paper. Because these are photopolymer stamps, they don't have a lot of cushion like the red rubber stamps that we have. So you stamp, it's recommended that you stamp on a pad, and I use my piercing mat. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in the stamps. And I want you to notice that there's 6 petal stamps, and so it makes 3 flowers. I'm going to hold these up a little bit, but one is a detailed stamp, and that's the one on my left. And then the stamp that's the fill-in, as I'm going to call it, is the one on my right. So we're going to start off with these large ones. Then you have the next size down. I'm going to say it's a smaller tulip kind of opening. Your detailed stamp is this one. And then what looks like a heart is the filler for this one. And then we have a bud and the center for that bud. And we're going to end up using almost all of these, I think. You have 2 sizes for leaves, a large and a small, and then you have the stem. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start with the stem. And actually, we are going to stamp our greeting first, because on the first card is going to be up portrait. So I want to put my greeting up here at the top. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to stamp that with Memento ink. So I'm going to go ahead and line up my stamp on my grid paper, simply because I am a horrible straight stamper, and this helps me most of the time. And I'm going to go ahead and ink up my stamp. Now, I tend to turn my ink upside down because that way I can see I get good coverage, but I also don't tend not to make such a mess. And I also line my paper up on my grid paper. So I'm going to go ahead and just move that over a little bit. And we're going to stamp at the top. Good. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in my stem, and we're going to stamp that. And before I do that, I'm going to lay this down, and hopefully you can see that this has some curve to it. So what I do is I recommend laying it down so that you pick it up naturally. Now, if you do want to change the shape of it, by all means, you can do that. But I want to keep that natural curve that this has. So I'm going to go ahead, I lay it down, and then I pick it up. And we're going to use some Granny Apple Green for this, for our stems. And go ahead and we're going to put one stem. I'm going to flip it around because I want my stem to go the other direction. So then I'm going to do that there. I wanted one a little bit shorter than the other. And now I'm going to bring in my leaves, and I'm going to start with the large one. If I find where I put it, here it is. And I'm going to pick this one up. And you can see the leaf has some curvature. Now the leaves can be flipped back and forth. Tulips, if you know anything about tulips, the leaves stay pretty close to the stems. They aren't way out. So I'm going to go ahead and with this one, I'm just going to ink it up. And then I'm going to stamp the larger one first. Now, the nice thing about the photopolymer stamps is you can see through them. So it's pretty easy to line them up so that you get a nice, see how that lays nicely against the stem. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch over to my smaller stamp. And I'm going to put that on a smaller block. And I'm just going to ink it up. And I'm going to come in here. And again, I can see through to line it up. And it's going to stamp off, which is fine with me. It's what I wanted. And now I'm going to flip this around. And I'm going to come in here. And I want this to fit in nice and close between them. So I'm happy with that. So now we're going to work on our flowers. So let's close this up. And our first tulip we're going to do is the polished pink. And so it's going to be monochromatic. But we're going to be able to get some different, a lighter shade with it by stamping off. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up my detailed stamp. And that's my filler. And I'm going to place it on my block. Okay. And I just, if I can ever stamp without getting ink on me, I'd be really amazed. So what I'm going to do here is, again, you can see through, and I'm going to try to keep my head out of the way here, but you can see through to place your stamp. So again, part of it went off. I'm going to take this one off, and I'm going to put on my other one. Before I do that, though, I want to make sure that it's on there in a way that it's gonna match up. And again, it doesn't have to match perfectly. That's why they're 2 steps and detailed stamps. But I want to get it as close as possible. So I have it on, and I'm going to ink it up, but I don't want it as dark as the one I just stamped. So I'm going to stamp off. And now I'm going to go in right over it, and I'm going to try to keep my head out of the way so you don't see it, and stamp it. So there's our 2 colors using just polished pink, which I love. Now we're going to go over to the second one, and we're going to use the smaller middle-sized tulip. So I'm going to bring in my detailed stamp, and I'm going to ink it up. And then we're going to go in, stamp. And we're going to take our, what I'm going to call the filler. And we're going to put it on here, and I'm going to ink again, but stamp off, because I want the lighter color. And then this is going to fit in right here. So aren't those pretty? I love this tulip set. It's, I think, my favorite set out of the new mini catalog. So I'm going to close this off, or we're going to use it, but I'm going to move it off for a minute. And then the stamp set has these little fringes, which are the black stamina from the flowers. So I'm going to ink that with my tuxedo black. And on this one, I'm just going to go in, and you have your center. I love that. Okay, so we're ready to put that on the front of our card. So I am going to move my mat out. And we're far from done with this card, but we're going to start here. So we are going to glue this to our black mat and then adhere this to the front of our card. And I'm not building this up. I'm just gluing it down flat. Now you could use Stampin' Dimensionals if you choose to, but I just wanted to keep it very simple. This was a card that I'm actually casing. And for those of you that don't know what casing is, it's to copy and share everything, or copy and selectively edit. And over the weekend, our Stampin' Up! Group had a team retreat. And this was one of the designs that we all did during this retreat. And I just loved it so much because it's simple, but I think it's elegant. I just really love it. So let's glue this down. And there's the front of our card. Now we're going to dress that up a little bit with brass butterflies in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to, maybe with this one, we're going to do a ribbon. We'll see. So this one said, "No one deserves a happier birthday than you." And I'm going to stamp in it, "Love you so much." So let's bring that out. And as you can see, I line it up. I've learned to do that the best I can so that I don't have to keep restamping. And I'm going to just use my silicone mat. Hopefully that'll be enough for my Well, I didn't do very well on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a center inside in. And that happens. So I'm actually just going to take a piece of basic white cardstock. And this is 3.5 by 5. So I'm going to cut it real quick. Right behind you. I'm right behind where I was. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and restamp that. Okay, and we're just going to stamp down. All right. Now, what I want to do is add an inside to this. I want to add a flower. So we're going to bring back in our polished pink and also our leaves and our stem. So this time I don't want the stem quite as long. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pick it up and use my green, but I'm not going to ink the whole stem up. And I'm going to bring in my mat again. So I have my stem on here. I'm going to go ahead and ink it up. And because I'm on paper, it's not going to matter that I go off. So I'm just going to do half of it. Then I'm going to get my small leaf back, and we're going to go ahead and stamp our leaf. Okay, for this one, I'm going to come in right here. And again, I'm going to flip it around and come in right like that. And then we're going to take the smaller the second tulip that we did. Oh, sorry for the noise. And we're going to stamp that on the inside here. So again, our polished pink. And because we can see through, we know where to stamp. And then we're going to go ahead and take the smaller stamp, stamp off again, and go right in the middle. Okay, that looks better. So now we're going to go ahead and glue this on the inside. So I'm going to grab my glue, and no one will ever know that I made a mistake under there but you and me. But I guess it's important to know we can fix our mistakes, and they're not that big of a deal. Okay, there's our first card. I love it. What do you think of it? I think we're going to do a bow on this one. So what I have is a piece of polished pink ribbon. And the easiest way I can make a bow is to fold, do like 2 ends folded in half. And this is the satin ribbon, so it's really slippery. And then what I do is just tuck it under. Now let's try that again. I have the 2 ends. I tuck one under and pull it through. If I can grab it. I'm sure many of you are better than I am at making these bows. And I actually do better when it's not real slippery. Let's try it one more time. There we go. 3rd time's a charm. So then I just pull it through and I play with it to get my bows. So what I often do is hang on to those and then tighten these up. So you can see there, I'm going to pull this through and then pull this end down. And I just keep working with it until I get it the way I want it and get it a little bit tighter. There was a time when I couldn't make the bows at all, but this way is the easiest for me. And then I just tighten it up. Not one of my better ones, but there we go. So what I'm going to do is I take a glue dot and I simply stick it, the glue dot on the back of the bow, and then gently peel it off. And I'm going to put it right here. And then you can trim your tails off with your snips. So I don't want them any longer than the base of the card, so I'm just going to clip these off. And there's our first card. So let's go on to the second one. And we're going to pull that in. Our second one is going to be Thinking of You. And again, this is all you need. The let's move that off because of the glue. The note cards or pieces 7 by 5 scored at 3.5. And then we have our black. I'm going to set those off to the side. Now this one we're going to do landscape or horizontally. And again, I'm going to bring in my piercing mat. And with this one, I'm going to use this thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp that before I place my flowers so that I know that I have enough room for my greeting. So let's go ahead and do this. These are really quick cards, and you don't need anything but stamps, ink, and paper. And you can make a lot of them in a short period of time. You are so thoughtful. Thank you. All right, now let's go back and we're going to just do what we did with the others. But this time we're going to use 2 different color inks. We're going to use the Melon Mambo and Blushing Bride. And let's see how that turns out for us. So I'm going to go ahead in here and I'm going to ink up my stem. And I'm going to come in like this. Re-ink. And I'm going to keep this one in this direction. Okay. And let's do our large leaf. And again, remember these leaves you can flip around. So this one is going to go right here. This one I'm going to flip. And then I'm going to come in the middle with my smaller one and go ahead and put another leaf in the center. So with that, I'm going to put this on here and let's ink this up. I'm going to go up a little higher. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to try to get part of this right here. Whoops, took the paper with me. That's a first. All right, so let's close this up. And we're going to go with the Melon Mambo first. I like to use my darker color when I do the detailed stamp. So I'm going to bring in, with this, I'm going to use the 2 smaller, middle stamp instead of the large one. So I'm going to ink this up here and let's come in right here. And there. And now let's come back in. And I've been cleaning the stamps in between because I don't want to contaminate my inks, even though I'm using pinks. So I'm going to come in with the Blushing Bride. And I'm going to stamp just because I want to see how dark it is. So I'm going to stamp off. And now we'll go ahead and stamp. So there's our, and I got some ink on that, but I'm not going to redo it now. But so there's our 2 different colors. It'd be interesting to see which one in the end you like better, using 2 colors or using the stamping off method and use 1 color. Let's go ahead and we're going to adhere this, and I have ink all over my hands. So I'm going to quickly take my sanitizer. I don't know if you're familiar and you know about the sanitizer, but you can use sanitizer. I also keep some baby wipes here to wipe my hands when I get ink on them. So let's go ahead and I'm going to flip that over and let's adhere this. Okay, and then we're going to put this on the front of our card. Again, I'm not going to use dimensionals. You can. I just wanted to keep this as simple as possible. Okay. And the reason I use the glue is it allows you to slide to line this up. There's our card. We're not going to use a bow on this one. We're going to use the brass butterflies. So I'm going to bring in my pick tool, and we're going to cover up that smudge with a large brass butterfly. And then we're going to bring in another one. Let's use another large one, maybe here. And then we're going to take a little one, and let's put it, I'm going to put it right in here. Okay, there's the front of our card. And then for the inside, I'm going to do just the same thing that I did with the last one. I'm going to leave this one blank because it is a thank you. And that way I can write my own greeting, personalize it. So let's just finish this up using our colors and put a tulip in there. With this, this one's going to go here. Flip it around. Just a few reminders that all the stamps are staying because they're in the mini catalog until June. Celebration is ending on after Monday. It'll end on the 28th. So if there's anything that you're still looking to purchase or get the free items, now would be the time to do that before it ends. We will have another celebration come July. And then I'm going to come in right in the middle here with just a small tip of the leaf. So I wanted to remind you about that. And also, if you like my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe and help me grow my channel. I would greatly appreciate that. And if you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to be your demonstrator and send you a catalog or help you with any of your crafting needs. I'm back with the Melon Mambo. I'm going to stamp, and it is going to stamp off. And then come back in here, stamp. And then with our blushing bride, I'm reaching over. I apologize for that. I'm going to stamp off and stamp here. So there's our second card. So let me bring these in. And I think one thing I wanted to show you before you leave is I don't know if I have the envelopes. I did not pull the envelopes. So let's bring these in and I'll show you what I did with the other envelopes. Here's our pink cards, monochromatic, 2 colors. In the pinks, here are our yellow cards. This one was in crushed curry, and this one is in daffodil. This was, both of these were stamped off. So, and I just got ink on there. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And I will be back on Monday with a live. at 1 o'clock. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and explore your love of stamping and paper crafting. Have a good night.